He looked at me, cannot catch his breath at all, and he looks at me and he says, "Can I go? Will you let me go?"
Back in July of last year, started having a persistent cough. And Sherry kept telling me, hey, you need to go get that checked out. And that kept on for about a month. But I was feeling great, so I didn't really care too much about the cough. Later in the month of August, we were doing a job out in the Permian Basin and started feeling pretty bad during that day, and came home and finally told Sherry I agreed to go to the doctor. And so did go, did an x-ray, found some bronchitis there in my lungs, gave me some medication, I went home. 2 days later, I lost my taste and smell, so I knew pretty quickly that I had COVID, and so went back to the doctor the next day, verified that that was happening, got some additional medications. A few days later, after getting those medications, Sherry became concerned again over my health and being stuck in my chair and not being able to move much, and kept encouraging me again to go to the doctor, and I kept refusing again because I'm a stubborn male to do that. And finally, she had gotten a pulse oximeter and my oxygen levels had dipped down into the 80s, and she said, I think you need to go, and finally I agreed. They did x-rays again, both lungs were full of pneumonia, and they began breathing treatments, and pretty soon thereafter, I passed out.
His breathing just kept getting more and more labored, and he was really having trouble breathing. He's actually starting to cough stuff up, and they ran the full gamut of what they could do at the walk-in clinic. They transported him by ambulance to the hospital. We got to the hospital. His breathing just kept getting worse and worse. And I began sending out messages to family and to friends and our life group just for people to start praying because it was really getting bad. The doctor came in and I said, hey, can you tell me what our odds are on the ventilator? And she said, well, you have a 50 to 90% chance of death going on the vent. He looked at me, cannot catch his breath at all, and he looks at me and he says, can I go? Will you let me go? And I was like, wow, I was just so stunned by hearing those words coming out of my husband's mouth because he could not breathe. I said, let's put him on the ventilator. And so they put him on the ventilator, so they had to take him to ICU and put him on the vent. Just the outpouring of love for me during that time was overwhelming. I had community that surrounded me so much, and I had sticky notes that I got, and I wrote scripture on them, and I stuck them all over the walls at the hospital, and a lot. And then I started asking people, hey, can you send me more scriptures? And I actually had people who wrote scriptures out for me, and I would paste them all over the wall. And the doctors and the nurses would come in, and the nurses would say, what is this? And I said, this is my battle plan. We're going to war. We're battling for this man's life.
So we did get our breakthrough. And, you know, so many times since then, we've wondered why. I've sobbed often. Wondering why I made it out. So many others didn't, including some really good friends. We walk in to this day in continual gratitude for what God did in our life. So we just walk in continual gratitude over what God has done. We still have questions, and we've reflected often on why did you spare me and not so many others? We believe so imperfectly and practice so imperfectly, but God is faithful through our imperfection, and she did it so well. And so we are living testimonies of how God has displayed his love and compassion for us, mostly through the body of believers that surround us. We're very humbled by where we are. We know that God left us here for a purpose, and we look forward to the new life that was promised to us, and we walk in that as a new life now, knowing that it's been redeemed. And we're we're just grateful.